This Week in Connecticut with Dennis House starts now.
Welcome to This Week in Connecticut. Greetings, everyone. I'm Dennis House. It is Sunday, July 14th, 2024. Straight ahead today, President Biden and former President Trump are the oldest candidates ever, and there are calls for cognitive tests. What are the signs of aging? Today, insight from an expert, Angela Christie of Hartford HealthCare. UConn coach Dan Hurley signs a big deal to coach the UConn Huskies into the next decade. John Pearson breaks down the contract for us. Our look at cities and towns continues today, and Sonia and its mayor, David Cassetti. Two vacant landmarks in your capital city. What is their future? Jeff Derderian investigates. First, the lead, the age of our presidential candidates. President Biden is 81 years old, Donald Trump 78, but would turn 81 if elected. Are these men too old to govern? There have been many questions about aging, mental acuity, and cognitive decline. What does all of that mean? I sat down with Angela Christie of Hartford HealthCare for some answers. And Angela, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So first, let's talk a little bit about aging, because aging is really a gift, right? Not everybody gets to grow into old age.
Exactly.
And so when you reach there, it is a blessing, but it's also problematic because, you know, your body starts to decay and slow down a little bit as we all get older. What do you tell your patients about aging?
So what I tell them about aging is it's all about maintenance. And the sooner we can learn that, the better. So we want to be taking care of our bodies, our hearts, and our brains so that we can live a long and healthy life physically and mentally.
It's genetic though also too, right? Some people are just blessed, right? With
Some
great
people
genes.
are definitely blessed with great genes. They are usually in the minority.
So let's talk about what's the average lifespan of an American man right now and an American woman?
Oh my goodness, I think for a female it's 83.
83.
And for the male, 81.
Okay. And as you go into, let's talk about the decades, right? Because a lot of our leaders are in their 60s, right? 60s, and then 70s is considered you're starting to get a little bit older. You do slow down a little bit in your 70s. What characteristically happens in your 70s?
So in the 70s, you start to probably are, living in retirement. You're doing different activities. You're doing things that you could always do. You just may be doing them a little more slowly.
And as we look at the two candidates out there, President Biden is 81. Former President Trump will be 81 in a term if he is elected. What happens in your 80s to your body and your mind?
So the progression is continual, be normal aging. We do slow down. We may struggle with memory. We may have a longer time for recall, sometimes struggle with word find. That can all be part of normal aging.
What are some of the afflictions that tend to hit people in their 70s and 80s?
Afflictions as far as medical illness or problems they may have. So a lot of times we'll be seeing arthritis, inflammation, diabetes is often common as we age. And of course we may see some of the dementias or the beginning of cognitive changes.
So let's talk about cognitive changes. How do you tell if someone is going through cognitive decline?
So there are lots of ways that we can adjust cognitively. We can look at, are people different than they were before? And that's often the question I talk to families about. What's different? What has changed? Are we looking at someone who is having more difficulties in their daily lives? Normally, we would adapt, adjust, we can compensate, we use strategies, but as we get older, we may not have that ability.
There have been so many people out there saying that both Biden and Trump should undergo cognitive testing. What exactly is cognitive testing?
Cognitive testing is quite the buzzword. There are many, many cognitive tests out there. The most common would be the MMSE, Mini Mental Status Exam, and the other would be the MOCA, Montreal Cognitive Assessment. And these are very brief assessments that look at your cognitive function. They do not diagnose any disease. What they would do is flag that you may need further neurotesting, but they in themselves are not conclusive. They are a screening tool that we use often.
When you screen someone for dementia or for Alzheimer's, what are the things you look for?
So we're looking at forgetfulness, recall, word find, and things that are more difficult than they were before. Struggling with the TV remote, things like that. Losing the car keys, not being able to find our way home.
Does everybody in their 80s suffer some sort of memory loss?
So our brain selectively forgets. People are very afraid of forgetting, but our brain selectively forgets so that we can remember other more important things. So there's no need to fear that sometimes we have a little slip and we forget.
Yeah, because people are, almost everyone relates to the stories about the president and older politicians, because we've all had someone in our family who's aged.
Yes. Yes.
And so as these patients come to you, when is there that moment of concern that, oh my, this person really has something serious really wrong with them?
Typically, it will come from a family member, someone who's close, who knows those changes more intimately on a day-to-day basis. Oftentimes, we will say to family who live at a distance, come spend some time. It takes time for those things to become apparent.
There's also this belief out there that, you know, as Nancy Pelosi said, the former House Speaker, that her concern was whether the president had an episode or whether it's part of a condition. Mm-hmm. Is it possible for your brain to improve as you get older, from 81 to, like, let's say 86?
I would say yes.
So it is possible.
It is possible. We have to be making concentrated effort. We need to be aware of those changes. I think that we can develop new connections, new neural connections, but not the way that we do when we're young.
And also, why is it that some older people are not as effective at night than they are during the day?
Well, that can be due to several things. It can be due to purely sleep loss, lack of sleep. As we age, we all complain we don't sleep well. Dehydration is a big factor. As we are bodily dehydrated, our brain is dehydrated. There's that shrinkage in the brain as we don't have the volume that we normally would have.
And are there things people should avoid doing once they reach 80? Perhaps cut back on alcohol or whatever it may be?
Yes, absolutely. There are strategies that we use to keep a healthy brain. We want to manage our cholesterol. We should know our blood pressure numbers. If we have diabetes, we want to try and control that. Exercise, vitally important to get that oxygenated blood to the brain.
So I know that you're not a doctor, so I'm not going to ask you to diagnose anybody out there, but as you watch certain people, have you been able to see their decline over?
I think over time we all age, and we all age differently. And in any given situation, we may react differently. We may have had a bad night. We haven't had sleep. We may have taken some type of medication that has a side effect. So there are many factors that it would be hard to pin it down to one specific thing.
When the president said he needed to get some more sleep and perhaps go to bed a little bit earlier, what did you think of that? Is that a good course of action?
It is. It's one of the things we talk about with healthy brain. People do not realize the value of sleep. As we sleep, our brain is doing many functions. It's sustaining our memory, and as I said, that selective forgetting to make room for other things. So sleep is far, far underrated today. Being
the president, of course, is the toughest job in the world. He's the oldest president in American history. Do you see a lot of 81-year-olds and 80-year-olds still working?
Some do, but they maybe don't work at the schedule that he has to maintain. I think that work can be vital, it can be supportive, it engages our brain, it gives us function and purpose, but we also have to be able to refresh, renew, good nutrition, good sleep.
I learned a lot during this conversation. Angela Christie from Hartford HealthCare, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
When we come back, Dan Hurley's new commitment to Connecticut, a Naugatuck Valley town, and bargain real estate in Hartford, or is it?